to get open, fires away. Bang! It's over! The Bulls win at the buzzer!
Rose came down bad on his left foot. See him holding onto his knee and down.
Prime Derrick Rose was the most athletic point guard in basketball history. Rose would explode into the paint and dunk over centers, leaping so high that it felt like he was defying the laws of physics. For 3 years, Derrick was the brightest player in the league and one of its faces, alongside Kobe Bryant and LeBron James. However, in the first game of the 2012 playoffs, Rose landed awkwardly, grabbed his knee, and felt unbearable pain. That very moment marked the end of the Derrick Rose we knew, and he was never the same again. Yes, he played another 12 years in the NBA, had a few top performances, and only recently retired. A year later, his number was immortalized in the halls of Chicago. But the Derrick Rose we knew and loved disappeared that fateful night in 2012. And to this day, the biggest question for fans of the best league in the world remains: what if Rose hadn't gotten that injury? He probably would have become one of the best players in history. But today, we're not talking about that. Let's recall how Derrick Rose in his youth humiliated the NBA and captured the hearts of young basketball fans. Hello to all NBA legends. Today, I'll tell you just how good Derrick Rose really was. Let's go. Derrick Rose was born in South Chicago, one of the most dangerous places in America, so his childhood was far from easy. Rose grew up in a 5-room apartment with his brothers. It might sound like a lot of space, but at times, 13 people lived there. Not exactly luxurious. It turned out that 2 of his older brothers were also involved in street activities, just like many young people in the area. However, Rose never wanted that kind of life for himself. He was only obsessed with basketball, always playing in the local park. By the way, the park was very dangerous due to the number of murders. And despite this environment, Rose hardly ever got into trouble. Perhaps it was thanks to the care of his mother or the fact that the whole family believed in him and bet on his success. Everyone believed Derrick was special and would escape the ghetto. Here's what Rose himself said about this. "In my youth, I was the best guy in the neighborhood. My whole life, I was the one everyone talked about. I didn't seek attention, but it was always there. In school, the hero of this video averaged 25 points, 9 assists, and 9 rebounds, and easily became a state champion. By the way, Rose dreamed of making it to the NBA since he was 12 years old, and after a successful high school career, many teams wanted to get their hands on this young talent. Rose chose Memphis, where John Calipari was the coach. This man is known for preparing students well for the NBA. In college, Rose continued to dominate, and in his only season at university, he was the leader of a not-so-popular team. He led them to the March Madness final, where they lost just painfully in overtime. By the way, Sasha Khan lost. A funny fact, all of Rose's achievements almost got canceled because of rumors that he cheated in the American equivalent of the SAT. But never mind. Let's move on to the summer of 2008 when Derrick Rose was considered the most promising player in his draft class. Interestingly, his main competitor was Michael Beasley, the same guy who spent the best part of his career in China. Besides him, that year saw Russell Westbrook, Kevin Love, and at worst, Brook Lopez being selected. So with the first pick, the Chicago Bulls selected Derrick Rose in the 2008 NBA draft. And yes, Rose stormed into the NBA with a bang. From the very first games, Rose dominated the floor, and no point guard in the league could compare to his speed. Yes, his shot was still unstable, but if you gave him even a little space, Derrick would instantly break to the basket and throw down powerful dunks. Even if opponents clogged the paint, Rose still managed to find ways to score. He honed these skills back in that very park in Chicago. When we played in the park, there were no fouls. That's why I make these crazy shots. I know I'll be fouled, but the goal is simple: to score. In his first season, Rose averaged 16 points, 6 assists, and 4 rebounds per game, won Rookie of the Year, and managed to lead Chicago to the playoffs, where they faced the defending champions, the Boston Celtics. And it was in the playoffs that Derrick Rose's bright star truly shined. Rose proved that he wasn't afraid of anyone and would force his game on any opponent. In his first ever playoff game, Rose scored 36 points, tying the record for most points in such a game. held by Kareem Abdul-Jabbar. In his rookie season, Derrick Rose managed to lead the team to a 7th game against the reigning NBA champions. This was a wake-up call for every team in the league. A new star was here. The new season showed everyone that Rose had become Chicago's main leader, and the team started believing in a title for the first time since Michael Jordan. Derrick was a quiet guy, an introvert, who always proved everything through his actions. His fighting spirit and unbreakable will to win inspired everyone. He made his first All-Star appearance, averaging 21 points, 4 rebounds, and 6 assists per game. In his second NBA season, Rose once again led Chicago to the playoffs. However, LeBron and Cleveland didn't give the Derrick-led team a chance, winning the series 4-1. Rose averaged 27 points, 3 rebounds, and 7 assists. But perhaps the turning point in Rose's career came in the 2010 offseason. While all the press was focused on LeBron James' decision to take his talents to Florida, Chicago fired Vinny Del Negro and hired Tom Thibodeau as head coach. Under the new coach, Chicago's defense jumped from 11th to 1st, and their offense went from 27th to 11th. And it was all on Rose's shoulders. Derrick averaged 25 points and 7 assists per game, but the most important thing was that he became the most exciting player in the league. He sliced through double teams like a hot knife through butter and could jump over any defender. Rose attacked the basket like a battering ram. His playing style struck fear into defenders, and that's no joke. You probably didn't know about the Derrick Rose flu, as Raymond Felton shared on a podcast. According to him, many defenders would intentionally fake injuries or illnesses before games against Chicago to avoid facing Rose. Can you imagine that today? In 2025, players might fake illnesses just because they're lazy or need to record a new podcast episode. Anyway, that year, Rose was a sensation, the #1 basketball player on the planet. Maybe not by stats, but definitely by hype. In 2011, the Chicago Bulls achieved 62 wins in the regular season, their best result since Michael Jordan's last season in 1998. This was enough to make them the top team in the league. It's no surprise that Derrick Rose, at just 22 years and 6 months old, became the youngest MVP in NBA history. Yes, in the playoffs, his stats only got better. In the first 2 rounds, Derrick played confidently, averaging 30 points per game. But in the conference finals, the most formidable opponent awaited. Even though the Chicago Bulls had the best record in the league, the favorite in the series was still the Miami Heat, led by the newly formed Big Three. However, Rose and the Bulls crushed Miami in the first game, winning by 21 points thanks to Derrick's 2 points. But in the next games, Heat coach Erik Spoelstra devised a trick and changed tactics. He put LeBron James to defend against Little Rose. Only LeBron's strength could contain the young MVP. Without his engine in attack, Chicago couldn't score, and Rose shot at a terrible percentage, only 35%. Miami confidently took the series 4-1. As Spoelstra later admitted, Rose was phenomenal, and their entire game plan was focused on stopping him. The next NBA season began closer to Christmas. I think I should remind you about the game between the Lakers and Chicago, where the Bulls as a team stopped Kobe. And before that, Rose hit the game-winning floater. After a season in which the player became MVP, came the year when fans believed that Rose would be the chosen one to bring titles back to the city. Expectations for the player were high, but unfortunately, the season was a letdown. Rose missed 40% of games in an already shortened season due to injuries. His stats also dropped. But despite this, Chicago once again finished first in the East, and the whole league was waiting for a rematch in the conference finals. But as you all know, that event never happened. In the first playoff game against Philadelphia, Chicago was comfortably ahead, with 1.5 minutes to go. But for some reason, Tom Thibodeau didn't substitute the starting players. Soon, during another drive to the basket, Rose landed awkwardly and collapsed to the floor, clutching his left knee. Rose tore his ACL, and at that moment, the career of the Derrick Rose we all loved came to an abrupt end. A slew of injuries, missed seasons, his last year in Chicago, a whirlwind of transitions, the legendary 50-point game against Utah, and his retirement after 16 years in the best league in the world. These are all topics for another video. Personally for me, Derrick Rose is the brightest flash in basketball history, and definitely a Hall of Famer. Yes, he didn't fully realize his incredible potential, and we never saw his true prime. But what we did get to witness is already worthy of the title of NBA legend.